Take a picture.
So I walked into the barn, and there, sitting on bales of hay, I saw Isaac and Abraham talking with Jesus and the Father.
Fire.
And Isaac was speaking, and he said, "Dad, you remember that time when you had me schlep that bundle of firewood to the mountaintop for a burnt offering?" And Abraham says, "Yes, son, I remember that day well. It was a tough day for me." And Isaac responds, "It was a bit of a tough day for me too, Dad. You know, I didn't quite understand what was going on. And then you said the Lord told you that I was the sacrifice. And you bound me and you put me on the altar. And you got out your knife. And I knew I trusted you. And I trusted God. And I knew that you wouldn't do anything that the Father did not tell you to do. And in that there was peace. Yet I have to say I was kind of scared. Because I really didn't know how this was going to unfold and what was about to happen. Except I remember clearly, as we left our entourage behind, you told them that we would return. And there was comfort in that. But I was scared. But there was peace. And then Isaac looked over at Jesus and said, "You know what I mean?" And Jesus responded by saying, "What, haven't you read today's gospel? For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son." Well, that's me. I'm on the same journey that you were on that day, except yours lasted a few minutes, and mine lasted roughly 30 years. The last 3 of which were pretty tough. Because I spent 3 years teaching and healing and helping people on that journey to the cross. 3 long years, knowing the suffering that awaited me. And also knowing what you just spoke of, Isaac, that peace of the Father. Knowing that when all was done, I would stand firm next to the Father. And that I could crawl up on Daddy's lap, and Daddy would hold me tight. These are 3 stories, one from the beginning of the Old Testament, and one that is really the end of the New Testament. How much our Father in heaven loves us to send his only Son as a sacrifice for our sins. Because we live in a world that is filled with temptation and desire. And the Lord knows that we really struggle with not sinning. And yet, he has this desire of purity. So he sent his Son as a sacrifice for our misgivings. Here we have earthly fathers and mothers. And in that, I was having a conversation with a young man one day, and he came home from youth group on a Wednesday night where they've been studying the Gospel of John. And he was sitting in his room really wondering what this verse out of the entire Gospel meant. What was the Lord trying to say to me in this Gospel? And after some time, his dad walked in and said, "What are you thinking about, son?" And this 12-year-old looked up and said, "Well, Dad, I'm trying to understand what we've been talking about in youth group the last few weeks. And it's wrapped around this verse out of John. And his dad sat down next to him on the bed and put his arm around him and said, well, son, tell me what you're thinking. And the young man went and talked about trust. And the idea that Christ trusted the Father, knowing the journey that he would be on. He trusted his Father to be with him on that journey. And as they talked, the young man realized that that was the same thing he had in his daddy here on earth. I can trust my daddy to be with me. Just like Isaac trusted Abraham, even though he was bound on the altar, and daddy's standing next to him with a knife, he trusted that Abraham would follow the words, the direction of the Father in heaven. And Abraham was never more excited in his entire life than when he heard the ram rustling in the brush. Well, this young man and his father had a fairly lengthy discussion that night, right there in the bedroom, and all the time his father was holding him right there in his arm. Say, yes, son, I understand. I'm here for you. Sadly, in our world, there are many children that don't have that loving father to sit on the bed with them, talk about the gospel, talk about the good days and the bad days at school. It's sad that those men are not in the house. A lot of mothers really have to do a lot of extra work and extra loving because those men are not around. One of those men, I heard a story recently, is sitting in jail in North Carolina. And the 9th grade class of his daughter's school was having a daddy-daughter function. And there were 3 girls that all hung out together that didn't have daddies. And they started talking about what they were going to do. One of the girls ended up talking to her uncle. Another girl was her stepdad, but he was due. And the third girl, even though her daddy was just down the road, loved her very much and wanted to be there, he couldn't. So that young lady's best friend, one of the other 2 girls, wrote a letter to the sheriff explaining what was going on with the daddy-daughter function, and asked the sheriff if he could bring this other girl's dad to the dance. Well, the sheriff did more than that. He said that we can have a special dinner for the 3 of you and any other young ladies that have fathers in my jail. We can have a special function at the jail. So I believe it was 9 girls showed up in their finest of attire at the jail to have dinner and an evening with their dads. That's important because those girls and those fathers had a life-changing experience that day. They realized how much they loved their children, and their girls realized how much their daddies loved them. They had that opportunity for daddy to put their arm around them. That was 3 years ago. This year, I believe there were 20 girls that went to that dance. So this sheriff is having impact in the community, changing the lives of these men and their children. I believe part of this gospel calls us to have that kind of impact in our community. We all know We need to be there for some of those children, to put our arm around that child. We need to speak the love of Christ, the love of the Father who would sacrifice his only Son. We need to bring that love, that intensity of love, to our world. Amen.
I mean,